Hello and welcome back to Cooking the Books with Gilly Smith, the podcast which takes us through 4 food moments from the books of our favourite food writers. It's about all of life through the prism of food, and this week we're putting Jamie Oliver's new book, One, to the test with a couple of 20-year-old food ambassadors from Huddersfield who I work with on the Right to Food podcast.
I like baking, but when it's cooking, it just seems like so tedious and long, but this is just like, some eggs, some rice, you're there, you're sorted.
Rabiya and Jani are part of a team of young people from across the country who report for the Food Foundation's podcast from the front line of food insecurity, having grown up often not knowing where their next meal came from. Now they're students, Rabiya of Law at Lancaster and Jani of Sport Therapy at Loughborough, and they're having to pull their resilience skills out of the bag to deal with the cost of living crisis. I wondered if Jamie's book would help.
Yeah, this is like the time when you get independence and you've got to do things for yourself. But when I go home, I really don't cook. So coming to uni and having this book, it was just like, just seeing how easy I could do the recipes was just amazing. Because I'm like, it's actually not that bad. It's not that hard. So it was actually a real lifesaver.
Brilliant. Rabiya, your thoughts, first of all, on Jamie's book?
So I think I have the complete opposite opinion of Jani. Recipes, yes, they were easy to follow. However, I found that there was a fair few recipes that included things like sausages or bacon and like red wine vinegar. And these are all things that I can't cook with. So it wasn't appealing to me.
You eat halal food, don't
Yeah.
you? And as a Muslim, you have very strict rules about what you can eat and indeed drink. How hard is it for you as a student to cook halal food in your own student house?
I can quite easily do it, but the accessibility of getting halal meat, that's a different story because I have to travel back home every time I need to replenish my stock of halal meat. And when I do get it, it has to go straight into the freezer. So that way it's there when I need to use it. I can't just nip over to Aldi like most students and just pick up a fresh pack of meat and start cooking with it.
Does it make you want to cook more plant-based food?
I'd definitely say I'm more of a carnivore, so I'm willing to make that sacrifice of travelling back home. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy plant-based food. I've definitely tried it. It's not terrible, but I do enjoy my meat.
You do. And you can cook, can't you?
Yes, so I taught myself to cook from the age of, I think it was 14, that I was doing it every now and again. And then as I just turned 16, a month after I turned 16, my mum left, and so I was kind of like forced to pick up more cooking, and that's when I started to perfect it from the age of 16 onwards.
Yeah, because you were having to feed your family. How many people were you having to feed?
So I've got 4 siblings, including myself and my dad that I live with.
And were you cooking Pakistani food? How did it work?
Well, we cook all sorts of foods, like obviously the traditional Pakistani food, Indian cuisine. We also cook English traditional food or Italian food. A lot of the foods that we do cook will always have some sort of traditional take on it, though. So like a lasagna might have, in the mince, it might have Indian seasoning rather than the traditional Italian, more herb sort of seasoning. All different types of food.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the work we do for Right to Food is about you two and the rest of the food ambassadors reporting pretty much from the front line of food poverty or food insecurity, which is about, it's not about being poor, it's about when your circumstances suddenly really change and you're plunged into not knowing where your next meal's coming from. And you two have both had experience of that and some. Tell us how that situation made you cook differently. First of all, you had to learn to cook, but did it make you think differently about which ingredients you could use?
In terms of different ingredients, I don't think so. Only because when you eat from your mother's hand, it's a different sensation when you eat from your own hand. Because it's like you'll never get that same quality. So it's like every time I was cooking, I was trying to replicate what my mum used to make for us. Only a few years ago did I finally perfect it. But yeah, no, Ingredients wise, I definitely did add a couple of things in here and there, or I took some things out depending on circumstances, such as my dad, he's got a condition called psoriasis, which certain foods will affect. So in those sort of conditions, yes, I would adapt the ingredients, or depending on what we had at home, if we even had the spare cash to go out and get it, then yes, we'd adapt. But overall, we enjoy to kind of stay to the same recipes.
So you're a good cook. Janai, you are a self-confessed non-cook. When we did an episode of Right to Food during lockdown, you were telling us about how you couldn't get to your nan's house, and because your mum had to go out to work, you and your sister had to rely on your nan. What happened in your household during lockdown? How did you manage, and where's your cooking skills now?
So during lockdown, it feels like ages ago, I found my mum started to cook a lot more just because she was high risk. So she was one of like the first people to like not go to work. So she started to cook a lot more. But in turn, we started to spend a lot more money on groceries and stuff. So she was very much focusing on what we're eating now, yes, but what would we have tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that, because we had to make it stretch. And again, it's not like we could just go out to the shops, because again, we're in lockdown and stuff like that, and we tried to limit us going out just for her protection. So we kind of had to compromise a little bit and really just get a lot of freezer food, because obviously that lasts long, and kind of just make just like food that would like last.
Yeah. I mean, Jamie calls it batch cooking, doesn't he? At the back of the book, there's, you make up your bolognese sauce, and you can make a cottage pie out of it. You can make a lasagna out of it. You can, do a pan fry with some pappardelle. You can do whatever. So were you doing that sort of batch cooking then when you're in lockdown?
Yeah. It was just like, okay, we'll cook this. How can we use this ingredient to make something for the next 2 days?
Yeah.
So yeah, batch cooking. I like that term.
But when we were doing an episode a few months back about the Good Food Bill, I asked you to go to Aldi where you normally shop with a couple of your mates, and then to go back home to your student housing and cook up a feast. Hannah, your housemate, who you say is the cook in the house, burnt the pasta. I mean, how do you burn pasta?
She's gonna slate me. Hannah, she's an interesting character. She burnt her fish yesterday. I can't even lie. She burnt her fish yesterday. But you know when you just start talking, because we don't really at uni, we don't normally cook together, so we all just started talking, and we were just like, "Where's the pasta?" So I like to say it was just a bit crispy on top. But yeah. But
the problem with that is that actually you can't afford to waste food, can you?
Yeah.
I mean, is there a sense that when you're some of the reasons that you buy your ready meals or your takeaways or whatever is that actually it's not going to go to waste, and if you do start cooking, even though it might be cheaper to do so, the chances are that it might not be very nice, or you might get distracted and burn it. Are those issues when you're thinking about what to eat? How are you choosing whether you're going to cook from scratch or get a takeaway?
Oh, I'm thinking, is it going to fill me up? Is it quick and easy? Because as well as uni, I do work, and I'm doing my dissertation this year, so guys, please pray for me. So yeah, is it quick, easy? Is it going to fill me up? And is it nice? Is it tasty? Those are like the top three things.
Right. And in the course of a week, how many times does the answer end with, right, I'm going to cook for myself then?
Oh gosh.
Come on, be honest.
Maybe like once or twice a week. I really don't cook.
Rabiya, how many times a week do you cook?
Every day except Friday night.
Okay. So give me an example of what you'd be cooking on a Tuesday night, for example, at your uni house.
So at the beginning of the week, I normally like to do a meal plan.
I'm sorry, you're making me look so bad.
This is somebody who's been looking after her siblings since she was 14.
Well, yeah, because I don't like to repeat the recipes that I'm cooking. Otherwise, I'll get sick of them. I'm normally cooking for me and another flatmate, and we alternate recipes that we have. So sometimes she likes the more traditional food that I eat, and sometimes I enjoy the traditional food that she'll make. So, for example, on a Tuesday, it might be a pasta bake, or it might be, I don't know, a chicken korma. You can, it'll switch up depending on what we're both feeling. But yeah, no, at the beginning of the week, I like to do a meal plan, and that way we can kind of alternate it where it's traditional English sort of thing, or a meat, veg sort of meal plan.
Nice. I mean, this is exactly how it should be. And Rabiya, are you aware of how much less it costs you to be able to cook from scratch?
Oh, significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't need to go out every week to do the shopping for the stuff that we want to make. It's kind of like already there from the last time we made it.
Yeah, so you're doing batch cooking as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Let's start talking about the Jamie book. Now, he has said that half the recipes in this book work out about £2 per portion, and most of the ingredients you can find anywhere. Was that your experience?
A lot of the stuff was just like stuff you'd have in the cupboard, like tomatoes. My granddad grows his own tomatoes, so I get tomatoes, eggs, chilies. I had to substitute, because I don't eat pork, so I had to substitute some bacon and stuff, like chicken sausages and stuff like that. But
Easy?
yeah, I think most of the stuff you'll find in your cupboard or in like your local supermarket. Yeah.
Rabiya?
Well, the chicken alone cost more than £2. But
But, well, of course, but then you're batch cooking it. So you're only using part of it. You're not using a whole chicken, are you?
I think this recipe was for 4 people, so for me, technically, that would be just not even for one family meal.
Right.
Because 4 portions would just serve the siblings and not my father.
But so basically, they were not about £2 per portion, but were they affordable? I mean, are these the kind of recipes that you would use easily in your life?
They're definitely affordable. I think I could use them if I was to tweak them.
Yeah, I tweaked some of them.
Okay, so it's called swapping out in posh terms. So, just swapping one ingredient for another. 70% of the recipes are classed as everyday, which means that they contain at least 3 of the food groups and at least 1 portion of veg. They must contain less than 30% of the average recommended daily calories, saturated fat, sugar and salt, as it says on the jamieoliver.com website. Now, you too campaign with the Food Foundation for access to healthy food for every child in the UK. Were you finding this was a healthy kind of approach to cooking? Did you find that it was ticking some of the boxes that you campaigned for with the Food Foundation? Rabiya?
I do think there were definitely healthier alternatives to what some people might normally eat. But yeah, I'll get into my actual opinions later.
Okay, when we go through the recipes. All right, Jani, were you seeing these as healthy foods?
Yeah, ish. I don't think I would think they're healthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think what Jamie's trying to do is basically saying, look, this is amazing, delicious food. And actually, look at it, the component parts.
Yeah.
It's really healthy,
yeah.
Which is great, isn't it? That's sort of making it more accessible and making healthy food look and taste like something that everybody would want a bit of.
Yeah.
Yeah? Would you say that that's how you felt about it, Jani?
Yeah, I think that's really good because obviously just looking at it, I was just like, is this healthy? Like, not just fried rice and eggs, but yeah, the way you've said that, I'm just like, oh yeah, actually, I didn't think about it like that. It actually is. So yeah, I'll be using this again.
Yeah, great. Excellent. One pot cooking. Now, it's called one because it is one pot cooking. It saves on the washing up. But it also gives you that feeling that it's not very complicated. What's the attraction of one pot cooking for you? Did it work?
It's so easy. It's just like your one pot, chop up what you need to chop up, put it in, add a bit of seasoning because we need some seasoning. You're done. But yeah, that's it. And that's like, for me, I like baking, but when it's cooking, it just seems like so tedious and long. But this was just like, oh, some eggs, some rice. You're there, you're sorted. But yeah, that's what I liked. I like quick and easy.
Fantastic. Rabiya?
I didn't like it.
Go on, why?
It's to do with the recipe, the Cajun chicken tray bake, right? He's got his chicken in the tray bake. He's poured the dry rice around it. And then he's added 2 mugs of water. The chicken that you've pre-seasoned is all going to be washed off. Your rice is going to be starchy because it's not been washed beforehand. And you've added the wrong ratio of rice to water. It's every mug of rice is 1.5 mugs of water, not 2 mugs of water. So you're gonna have soggy chicken, and then right at the end of the recipe it says season to perfection. You kind of want to be seasoning and perfecting your chicken beforehand, especially if you want it to marinate and let all the chicken absorb all the seasoning, because when you're adding the water after, it's washing it off.
So did you follow the instructions, and what was the result?
I did follow the instructions, and the result was that the chicken came off a bit bland and honestly a bit wet because of the amount of water that was in there. And the recipe also says to leave it for 20 minutes. So with the foil over the tray, you leave it for 20 minutes. That's not enough time for 2 mugs of water. It was sticky, and kind of once you've got sticky rice, there's no going back, especially because you've let out all the steam. It also says in the recipe 20 minutes or until it is fluffy, but you're not going to know if it's fluffy until you've checked after the 20 minutes, and you can't reseal rice because all the steam's already gone out.
So you cook rice obviously a lot. You're a real pro on cooking rice, and you would cook it separately, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And also with something like your chicken, you'd do the spices first. Mm-hmm. You'd fry off the spices first, and you'd cook your onions for a long time, wouldn't you? There's a whole process. I mean, how long would you cook a chicken if you were to take that recipe and make it your own? How long would you cook the chicken?
It can honestly take the same amount of time. I'm just saying the steps in general kind of needed to be switched around. So, for example, the water and the rice could have been separately on the hob instead of being baked. And then the chicken can still be baked, can still be seasoned exactly the same. Maybe beforehand, if you really want, let it marinate. I mean, I tend to marinate for either overnight or 2 hours. But if you don't have that time, you can literally do it there and then put it in the oven. And it'll still come out with the same result. The only issue is, when you're adding all of that water with the rice, it's not going to have the same effect as chicken and rice if you were to do them separately.
Right. Do you know, you also did this recipe, didn't you? How did you find it?
I think that's why I've had a bit of a different experience, because I didn't follow some of the steps. Like Rabiya was saying, like with the rice, I didn't add that much water because... Gilly, making rice is an art. It's actually really hard. So I'm still on it, but I just make rice the normal way I make it, so you don't need too much water. So like stuff with that, like stuff my grandma's passed down to my mum and my mum's passed down to me, like with rice, because we do cook with rice. I was just like, well, I'm gonna cook the rice I know how to do it, and then I'll kind of incorporate it in. So I think that's why I had maybe a different thing, because I just tweaked it a little bit.
But that's all right, isn't it? I mean, you know, the whole idea of a recipe is just to inspire you about what you want to eat that night, remind you that something's really easy, and then you do it your own way. I mean, do you know, you did the pick-me-up chili fried eggs. I mean, I bet you do a version of this.
Yeah.
Kind of quite often, don't you? Or was this a surprise to you?
No, my mum, she does make she makes like egg fried rice all the time. It's actually really nice. She has like soy sauce to it. She has like salt, pepper, season it. Like she just makes it like a party. So I kind of took that into it and like made it my own. And again, I can't eat pork, so I use chicken sausages, which is actually really nice.
Yeah.
And then I used bacon. Well, I didn't use bacon. I use like turkey bacon type things.
Again, swapping out, making it up as you go along. But was the recipe useful in terms of inspiration?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because I would have never, especially like with frying the eggs, I would have never done that.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh.
Are you learning new skills, Jani? I mean, Rabia's clearly, you know, skilled up to the eyeballs. But are you learning things through the recipes that you've done, Jani, from this book?
Yeah, especially because I'm not a cook, as we've realised at this podcast. With the batch cooking as well, like just thinking, what can I make with this as a leftover ingredient? You can make this.
Yeah.
Because I would have never thought to do that. Because I'm like, okay, Mum, what's for dinner today? She was just like, think of something that we used last time. So this book has really like emphasised that. And like, you don't have to follow it word for word.
Yeah. Tell us about the sausage pappardelle. Sounds terribly posh, but
it does.
Is this something that you could do?
Yeah, it was actually, the way it was written, it was very clear, very easy, and it was really nice. Obviously, when I saw lasagna sheets, I've made lasagna before, and I swore I'd never make it again because it went awful. So I got a bit scared. But again, I would have never thought to, like, chop them up and, like, mix them with what was it? That tomato sauce thing, and the sausages. And I just felt really fancy. I gave some to my flatmate. She was like, "This is nice." I'm like, "Well, I'm not making it again." I'm joking.
It was, yeah.
No, but seriously, is it something that you would want to cook for a date, maybe? Or a bit of a, special night with your housemates?
Of
would you do that?
Yeah. If I need to impress someone, I'd be like, "Here's some sausage pappardelle." I bet you never had that before. No, even if it's just like, just like a family get together or just like a family dinner, it's just really good for those types of things. But yeah, it was really nice, really tasty.
Excellent. And Rabiya, the other one that you did was the sweet potato chili. So this didn't have meat. So how did that feel as a complete carnivore, choosing of all the recipes I asked you to choose any two, and you chose a plant-based one. Why did you choose a plant-based one, and how did it go?
Well, because it's not massively abnormal for me. I mean, if you know what dal is, so it's literally lentil soup, kind of similar principle. I do enjoy the veggies, but with this one, I actually thought I would enjoy it because I love sweet potato and I love chili. What could go wrong, right? Well, let me tell you.
I feel something's gonna go wrong.
Oh no! This is where the book comes in.
No, I really had high hopes for this one. I did for the Cajun chicken as well, but clearly. So I've got my little notes here. I kind of wish I hadn't followed the recipe to a T, because again, there was way too much water in it. You've got soggy chili by the end of it, and it was 2 jars of water plus 1 tin of water into the chili, and this is for 12 people. So I thought, if it's nice, I'll actually freeze it and keep it for 12 people, because why not? But it took 2 hours to cook. For me, a little bit longer, because I was trying to get rid of all this water. It just wasn't going. So I think that's an issue for a parent, working class parent, who's busy all day, probably in the evening as well. Not really going to have 2 hours to spare to make a soggy chili. And especially because it's for 12 people. There's no freezing instructions on it. For us batch cook people, we love freezer instructions. But yeah, no freezing instructions. It took way too long to make, and the end result was soggy chili.
There's lots of ideas in here. I was reading it through from sort of your perspective and seeing kimchi in soup and charring courgettes, and I was thinking about you, Jani. I mean, we've talked about the burnt pasta, but would you know how to char a courgette, and would you do it?
No.
Oh, Jani.
It just sounds like a burnt cucumber. Like, it doesn't appeal to me. Yeah, and even like what Rabi was going back to, like working class people with kids. What kid do you know that's going to eat a charred courgette? Like, realistically, you need to try hide the veggies, like get creative with it. But as a uni student, I don't think I will be charring courgettes anytime soon.
No. What about kimchi in your soup?
What's kimchi?
Yeah, I thought you might say that, yeah. It's fermented vegetables. It's actually a brilliant way of using all your leftovers in the back of the fridge. Put it in a great big pot, put some salt in. The salt gets rid of all the water. Then you squish it all together, and a couple of days later, you've got this fantastic thing, which is brilliant for the gut. It costs you absolutely nothing.
I need to improve my gut health as well.
Yeah, try it out. You do. And a sports nutritionist like you should know all about gut health.
You said, I've got a nutrition course this semester, so next podcast I'll be like on it.
Tell them all about your kimchi. Exactly.
Yes.
Rabiya, charring is a skill. It adds a kind of a texture and a flavour. You probably do some charring, do you, of some sort in your cooking? Tell us about some of the skills that you would perhaps talk to Jamie about putting in a book like this.
I think before he gets the opportunity for skills, I think kind of work out the water ratios. I looked
She's
through.
still on the rise.
No. I looked through a few other recipes, and even in them, there was quite a fair bit of water. You don't need that much water. You really don't. It'll still make the same amount.
Well, let him know. Tell us about kimchi. I mean, a lot of Indian, Pakistani, Asian cooking, it's all, pretty much cooking from all over the world. It's about using up your waste. It's about using up your leftovers, making it absolutely delicious. That's how most people in the entire world cook, and why wouldn't you? Some of those skills, take something that's been at the back of the fridge and give it a bit of a char, or, put a bit of salt down and get rid of your cabbage and turn it into something like kimchi. Would you do that? Do you do that?
I do. So I char courgettes, peppers, sweet potatoes, onions, red onions, all sorts. I char quite a lot. It's normally kind of like a veg mix that I'll throw on the side as like a side dish. We also do a similar alternative. So any leftovers that you've got, you put it through some water, so rinse it out a few times, cover it in salt, let it soak for a bit, wash it off again, and then you put it in a container with oil and this sort of pickle sort of thing. So for a while it ferments, and by the end of it you've got like pickled carrots, pickled non-ripe mangoes, and you can just eat it as it is. And if you're a fan of the pickled sort of flavour, then it's actually really nice, and it lasts for ages. Like, it does not go off. If you believe in that or not. We use all sorts of skills where it's like grabbing things from the back of the cupboard that you forgot were there, or the back of the fridge, and you can just put it to some sort of use.
Yeah, brilliant. To sum up, Jamie Oliver won Simple One Pan Wonders. Janai, would you use it again? Would you recommend it to your housemates?
I would use it for inspiration. So again, I would just tweak certain stuff. So yeah, if I was a bit low on inspiration, what I want to eat, I'd have a look and I'll be like, oh, that sounds good, but I'll swap this out for this, or I won't add as much water as it says in the recipe. But yeah, I do think it's like a good starting point if you're like me and the kitchen's not your best friend.
It's a good book to give to students starting a new term. Rabiya, yes or no?
Surprisingly, yes, but as Janai said, I'd definitely tweak things. I think it's definitely more inspiration for me, just more alternatives about what I could cook, but maybe not necessarily follow the steps that he set it out in.
A good book for your uni student friends, though, who are perhaps not as adept in the kitchen as you are?
Possibly. You know what? I find everyone that I've lived with are actually quite good at cooking. I don't know whether it's just the traditional stereotype of students can't really cook, but these ones can.
Good to hear it.
Or if they're just somehow managing to whip things together and it tastes good and looks good.
Well, the thing is that we are talking at a time when the cost of living is a serious crisis. You can't afford not to be able to cook. Mm-hmm. Cooking skills really means that you've got access to good, healthy food really much, much more cheaply. Janai, let me ask you, as somebody who doesn't cook as much as Rabiya, will you have to try to cook more yourself because of the cost of living crisis?
Yeah, definitely. It's just with the uni students, especially me, because obviously a single parent household, you really kind of on your own when it comes to certain things, especially with money and cooking. It's not like I can go home and ask my mum for £20 for this week's shopping. So yeah, I've got to become a lot more creative, and again, I'm going to definitely install this batch cooking because I feel like it would save me a lot of time and a lot of money. And even at home as well, talking to my mum, she's had to reevaluate how she does stuff as well, and my grandma as well. So it's really affecting everyone and just the day-to-day lives.
Yeah. Will you cook anything for your nana next time you go home?
Yeah, I will. Me and my sister were planning to cook this whole Jamaican feast, but again, the cost of living's going up. So I think we're gonna wait a bit and then cook for her and ask what she thinks, because I've cooked for her before and she's given me pointers.
Would you cook anything from this book for her?
No, just because my nana is a very, very picky eater. Like, even when we have to go out to eat for someone's birthday, we're very limited. But my granddad, I'll cook from, he'd eat it.
When you say she's a picky eater, is it because she only eats Jamaican food?
Yeah, mainly. She doesn't really like eating other food, but I think that's because she's just grown up eating Jamaican food every day.
So that's really interesting. So do you feel that you were able to pick up enough skills from what you learnt from Jamie and be able to swap out and maybe use some Jamaican spices to cook something that your grandmother would eat.
Yeah. Yeah, because even with the book, I was taking stuff that my grandma and my mum taught me, but I don't see why I can't do it the other way around, using the book and giving them like a bit of a different culture. Yeah, that's definitely a thing to do.
And Rabiya, you're very confident in your kitchen. Is there anything that Jamie Oliver can teach you?
Oh, 100%. I think I'd be naive to say that I'm perfect when it comes to the kitchen, because I'm not. I can have days where I might burn pasta. I think some one-pot meals could probably definitely work. It just happened to be that the two that I picked didn't really work for me. Or maybe even the sweet potato chilli could have definitely worked had I not followed maybe the recipe. But yeah, no, skills-wise, I think he can definitely teach me a lot.
Thanks for listening. And Rabiya and Jani have agreed to continue their test kitchen throughout the university term to see what a difference it can make to their cooking skills. We'll meet them again at Christmas to find out. Don't forget to sign up for my newsletter at gillysmith.com and follow me at foodgillysmith on Instagram. And I'll see you next week.